Well, hey, FCA, welcome. We are here today just to have a conversation. In light of the celebration of Black History Month, we wanted to start a conversation where we could hear and better understand coaches and athletes, but also the friends and the brothers that we have on our staff today. Hear their stories, really just to better understand. I know I'm here in this seat just to better learn from these two and to better understand who God's created His church to be. We're going to hear a little bit of each Chris and Dion's story, but first I'd just like for you guys to introduce yourself a little bit about what you do on FCA staff, and we'll get into it.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Dion Spencer, and I'm an ambassador for FCA on the northeast side of town in Portland. I also help Chris, or I will be assisting Chris in FCA basketball. I just kind of told you what Chris does. Don't mind that.
And then Chris.
What's up, guys? Yeah, I'm Chris Edward. I'm the basketball director, as Dion just said, and working in all of Greater Portland and new on staff. This is month 2.
Yeah.
So super exciting.
Yeah.
Glad to be back to another video with you.
Yeah. So we, like I said, just in light of Black History Month, we wanted to celebrate those in our communities that have stories that need to be shared. And we hope, in our prayer, I guess, going into this meeting before this, was that we don't want you to just watch this video so you could be, what do the kids say nowadays, woke. We don't want you to watch this video just to be more woke or to be to say you watch this video. We want you to please step into this video, sit in it, and really listen. And what we hope to see, and the goal, is that this is the way God created us to be, and this is the way our friends are experiencing this right now. And there's a gap there. And we want to see that gap. And I know for me, sitting in this seat, I want to see that gap in my own heart so that I can run to the feet of Jesus and be like, Lord Jesus, please fill me and help me better understand and help me better see my brothers and sisters who are hurting. So I think to just start us off, you're both amazing basketball players. I am obviously better
You're
than both of you.
You're good.
I've got a silky smooth jumper.
Me and you are undefeated together.
Yeah, we
by the
are.
way.
Yeah.
I just thought about that.
Oh, I
when you
forgot
said
about that. I shot one in Kane's eye to win the game. Okay. I just remembered that. That's amazing. So who's the GOAT?
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
Oh, we agree. I'll just say, for time's sake, Michael Jordan. I'll also say I really like Kobe Bryant. I mean, obviously, R.I.P. LeBron James, though, I mean,
He's up there.
he's up there. He's really up there for me. But we won't get into it. But yeah, Chris, I feel like you could just open us up, kind of just tell us what brought you to Portland and the call kind of God put on your life, being a young Black man in America.
Yeah, so when we were thinking about what to talk about in this video, kind of just spitting silly and went around and just like a bit of my story, and the theme that came up was my calling.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I grew up in the Inland Empire, which is like LA adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say I'm from LA because people down there like they'd crucify me. Like, you're not really from LA. So Inland Empire, and I went to Claremont High School, which is like a very affluent neighborhood, majority white, and like there's probably like 20 of us, 2% Black people, and like the school was 2,000 kids, which was small for our area, but like anywhere else, especially up here, is like, oh my gosh, that's a huge school.
Yeah,
really small
that's
school.
big to me.
Yeah, it's like
I went to a high school with 400 kids, so that's huge.
My graduating class was 700. Like,
I don't know what that's like.
it's wild. But yeah, so I played basketball all through high school, and like my sophomore year, there was like three Black people, which is weird because like that's our sport, like quote unquote, that's our sport.
Yeah.
So that was different, you know. I'm kind of used to just being a token, like the only Black person in all my classes, just because that's Claremont. And then like junior year, there was just a shift. There's like 14 of us were Black. And that was like the school. That was the male Black population were on the basketball
team. Was that
team.
the whole school?
That was like, I think there's like 6 other people and they played football or soccer. Like, so
wow.
majority of the Black men like were on the court. So it was like, it was cool because it was a different culture, and like the way we played and kind of like SoCal ball is like you get after it. Like it's a dog eat dog world. Like you just kind of have like that chip on your shoulder mentality, and like we just work hard and get after each other. And then it's like senior year, same thing. Like I said, we had a guy who's like actually half Egyptian, so he's like actually African. So like he's legit African American. And then everyone's like, oh, look at the African Americans like talking about us. I'm like, nah, we black. Like he's actually African American.
I'm actually African American.
Exactly. He's like, you guys are stupid. Like Egypt's in Africa. I'm like, nah, it's Middle East. He goes, are you guys serious?
Like, oh no!
Like, are you for real? And we're like, yikes. This is our education. Like, we're supposed to be the smart school, and like people don't know where Egypt is.
You guys did nuts.
They did not
That's
get
hilarious.
it. It was so rough. It was so rough. But yeah, so like I think the court was like my sanctuary. Like basketball was the chance to like actually be with my brothers, because like I didn't see them in classes. I was usually, our schedules were always different, but I tried to take the more advanced classes because education was huge in my family. And so like my school was super racist. Like kids brought the Confederate flag to our senior photo and they would like wave it. They would like sing "The South Would Rise Again" in class, or like whenever they see me in the hallways. Whenever we had like the civil rights little itty bitty section, and they'd like look at me like, so what do you think about slavery? And I'm like, what you mean, what do I think about slavery? Like, that's such a stupid question. Like, I thought it was great. We go back, like, no, terrible. But it just like, it's weird, like being the only black person in class is like, they expect you to be the voice for all black people. And like, I'm not. Like, I'm one man.
Yeah.
So then I felt the calling to continue to play basketball. Never got a scholarship out of high school. Went to junior college, Joe Chafee. It's in Rancho Cucamonga. If you've ever seen the Friday series, Rancho Cucamonga is from there. If you haven't, it sounds like I'm saying a fake name, but it's a real life city.
I was just gonna ask you, like, that was actually a real city?
Yeah, it's a real city.
I was like, run that back real quick.
Yeah, real city. And that was a whole new world for me. It was like, I'm black, but like not that black, right? Because like my entire team, just all black guys from all different parts. We had gang members, Bloods, Crips on the same team. That was hilarious to see, like just from the outside, like not being a gang member, and like people like flashing their gang signs when they make a three, and everyone's like, "Hey, watch yourself!" But having basketball be that like uniting force, oh, it was so funny. Yeah, and then even then at the college, we had 30,000 students. So like you saw your classmates and then nobody else. In classes, like there's a stereotype for athletes, especially junior college athletes, like you're there because your grades weren't good. Like you don't care about academics, you don't care about any of that. You're there just to get a scholarship. But like that wasn't me. Like I cared about my academics. I mean, I got 70 units in 2 years. So that was like 30 classes in 2 years. Like I was grinding.
Yeah, you were grinding.
like actually like 6 classes a semester, like putting in work. So then there was one class, I remember this like moment specifically. It was like an intro to psych class, and there was 5 of my teammates. So it was probably one of the bigger classes, like 100 students, 5 of us. That was it. We were the black people, the 5 of us. And I guess our teacher just wasn't having a good day. And like people were talking and she goes, all right guys, like, can you stop talking? And usually like we're the ones talking, like I'll be the first to admit it. Like usually we're the ones like just making jokes or whatever. But today we were silent. We had a game coming up, so we're kind of just mentally focusing for that. So she stops class and looks at all of us and goes like, hey, like, can you guys like, I'm gonna have to call your coach. And all of us were like, oh, she's talking to us. And then they're like, well, we're not about to get in trouble. So they just hand me their notes and then leave. Like, no harm, no foul. And then, like, teacher breaks down, starts crying immediately. And I was like, is she crying? Like, that's wild. And then one of this girl goes, yeah, like, you guys have no respect for teachers whatsoever. And I, like, look at her. I'm like, nah, she's not talking to me. She goes, yeah, like, you are all in here. Like, all you black people are in here. I'm like, oh no. Cool. So she is talking about me. And I was like, first off, do you want me to get my teammates so you can say this to their face? Because, like, I'm not about you just talking when they're not here. If you want to say something to our face, cool. If you want to talk about me, cool, I'm right here. And secondly, don't you dare talk to me about, like, I don't care about school. I probably have the best grade in this class. And she's like, no, I bet you don't. I was like, okay. Like, I don't need to prove anything. And so it was a chance for me to, like, stand up for people and stand up for my people. Like, you're not about to just talk about us when they're not here. And if you have something to say it to their face. And if you're not, like, if you don't have the heart or the guts to, then don't say it at all. Just a little side note, next week in class we're talking about, like, when have you ever felt like you were stereotyped? I was like, boom. And then just started going off. Just started going off for like 10 minutes. She goes, yeah, like, you actually have the best grade in this class. Like, you are like near 100%. And I'm like, thank you. Just stare at the girl. I'm like, And then, so that was fun. I mean, it was different. Like, I changed my style just being like, because I wanted to fit in, but like not really fit in. Because, I mean, I told you guys earlier, like, these aren't the dudes that I would like to be cool, like, friends with. Like, outside of basketball, their culture wasn't mine. But, like, so it was just different going from, like, an all-white school where their culture wasn't mine to, like, a black, like, completely black school where their culture still wasn't mine. And it's like, why did God call me here?
Yeah, that's
like,
good.
What's the purpose? And
That's good.
a part of it was just, like, seek God in this moment, no matter what. And, like, it doesn't matter like, you're different. Like, I called you to be different.
That's fire.
And then I go to Concordia, which is back to Claremont, essentially. A private school up in Portland, Oregon. And I've never been to Portland. This is my first time, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, the green, like, in the middle of summer. And it was just, that was, like, completely different. Even less black kids, like, and different. Like, no one's from SoCal. They're from, like, Tacoma or Portland. Like, and they were the only one in school of 400. Or like, I had two people different times, like, say, like, is it cool if we call you colored? And I was like, what? Like, they're like, yeah, we don't know what to, like. I'm like, Chris. And like, well, I'm like, Chris Edward, like, that's my name. And she's like, oh yeah, but like, there's another Chris. I'm like, tall Chris, black Chris. Well, I don't want to say black, like, that's offensive. I was like, and you think colored is good?
That's better.
I was like, we might need to rewire that. So even then, it was just different. And like, it's hard because, like, I'm used to being the only black person, but it's like, it's still weird going to classes and like not seeing any representation. I think I had maybe 3 black teachers, like, growing up, like, in my entire, like, academic life. And even now in grad school, like, still no black teachers, no black professors in college. It's just, there's just no representation. Like, you don't really see people who look like you. So then again, it's just navigating, like, why did God call me to Concordia? Because, like, in terms of basketball, that was like the worst place for me to go. Like, I had other offers to, like, nationally ranked Division IIs, walk-on opportunity Division I's, but I'm like, I'm going to Concordia. They can't even play in the Division II tournament yet. Like, this is lit. But it was just, God was like, I'm calling you.
That's so good.
For a reason. And I was like, I still don't know. Like, even now I'm like, what was the reason for me to be there? And then I get the call to go to Germany. And like, again, that's just another, like, sweet, I'm doing this for basketball, but like, looking back, like, definitely wasn't for basketball. Like, God called me there for something else. And it's just like, Germany's different too. One, not religious. Definitely not black. And if they are black, they, like, Longin was kind of cool because it was like in between some, like, military bases. So then you would see, like, some black folk, like my friend Devin, his dad's from South Carolina, and like his mom's German, so like he's out there. But that was it. Like, there's 2 other black guys, and they both were half, and then there was me. Like, that was it. And it's just the culture is like, hey, you like rap? Like rap, that's not just my culture. Like, it's just not rap or hip hop. Like that was crazy to me because they're like, yeah. And then if I say, like, oh yeah, I'm from California, where, like, LA, because no one there knows the Inland Empire. They're like, Hollywood, like, do you see celebrities and just start naming these black rappers? I'm like, no, I don't even think they're from LA. Like, but it's just crazy because everything they know there about black people is from TV.
Yeah.
It's from movies, it's from music. And so
Dang.
they just have this perception of like, oh yeah, like you definitely like cornbread. And I'm like, shoot, like I do, but like not because I'm black.
Does it taste good?
Right?
Because it's good. Like, have you ever had cornbread? They're like,
Cornbread with that black salad. Collard greens, that's what you're talking about?
they're like, yeah, you like that purple drink, right? Kool-Aid's good. I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
and it was like, you can't really be mad because that's what they were fed.
Mm.
And like, and just like, cool, how do I navigate this? Like, like legitimately, what is God teaching me? Like, I'm in a place where my homie picked up my Bible, and that was the first time he's ever touched a Bible in his life. He's 20 years old. And like, then I have other people who like, I'm their first legitimate conversation with a black man. And it's like, they just don't know what to do. So I have like my black friend who's never picked up a Bible before, and then I have like these white folk who've never talked to a black man. It's like, why am I here? It's just so weird. And the like weird thing about overseas basketball is like I have 4 hours of practice. I have 20 hours by myself.
Yeah.
So it's legitimately like it's tough. And like I think a lot of people kind of knock on overseas basketball because it's like out here it's like NBA or bust. And they don't really realize how difficult it is to like leave your family, leave your friends, leave people who speak the same language, leave people who look like you, like any of that, to go like pursue something that you believe in. And it's like, it's a grind. So I spent a lot of time like by myself and in the Word, just because it was like, I don't belong here. Like, and I get reminded constantly when I'm just like walking down the street and like people are just looking at me funny. And part of it is because like, that's just how Germans like, no smile whatsoever. Like out here, you go on a walk, people are smiling, they say hi. If they don't say hi to you, you know they got a problem with
That's
who
true,
you are. Down there, it's just, hello, it's like, I'm like, you good? And then my teammate's like, yeah, not so good. Like my grandma's sick. All right, I could tell. Like you look next day, next week or something, same facial expression. You good? Yeah, I'm great. Having a great day. I was like, are you though? Like, are you really?
What's your heart, bro?
Yeah. So even that, like, the emotional aspect, like I'm a super emotional person. Like I wear my heart on like my arms, like it's like a jacket, like it's just out there. So like pretty much the antithesis of who I am, we're Germans. And so it was like, why am I here? And it was just, I felt like this was God telling me like, I'm calling you here to develop a leadership mentality of like, you're here because no one else can do it but you. And you're strong enough. It's gonna suck, it's gonna hurt, but like, we're gonna push you. So I'm like, cool. 5 more years of this, I'm gonna make EuroLeague. Like everyone's gonna know my name. Pandemic, he goes, no, I think you're done with basketball. It's like, oh gosh. Okay, what's next? How about Portland? You want to go back there? Remember FCA? You were an intern for them. Like, how about you go back there? I was like, okay, all right. I don't know why, but sure. You call me back to FCA.
Did you argue with God with that about that?
A little bit. A little bit.
Like, you want me to go back to work?
Cause and this was like, and this was like prime when like the riots were happening and like downtown was erupting, like the fires were happening. People were like, "Are you sure you want to go back to Portland?" Like they seem like they're going through it. I'm like, man, I'm going through it myself. Like it doesn't matter. And I remember one of the elders at my church when I told everybody like, yeah, I'm going to Portland to be at SCA. Like, yeah, I heard Portland's dark. I was like, oh yeah, Portland's super dark. And I'm like, and the difficulty is like everyone's so nice. And so like they just kind of confuse that with being white. And he's like, man, you're like Daniel. And I was like, what? I'm not nearly as wise as Daniel. Like I can't interpret your dreams. Like none of that. Like my prayer life definitely not like Daniel. He was like, he's like, you're going into a place where you don't belong. And like God's calling you. He's like, I see it. I was like, I don't believe you. Like I legitimately fought him for this. I was like, I'm not Daniel. Daniel's way too like, you're insulting Daniel by saying I'm like Daniel. Like I'm not the one. Like I'm not the man for this. And he's like, no, like you're going to a place that doesn't look like you, that doesn't think like you, talk like you. And you're going to, especially, he's like, and I'm sure FCA is white. And I'm like, yep. I'm like, he's like, and I know that, like, you're gonna have to figure it out, and like you're really gonna have to depend on God and be that blameless person. And I was like, I'm not the one. Like, I like having this comfort of my people, my brothers, like my group of friends. I like spitting and bonnings. I like talking, like just messing around and being fun and being cool about that. But like, God's like, back to Portland you go. And I was like, oh Lord, okay, I'm here. I'm here. Like, why am I here? And this was like all the conversations, because this is like around the time where the Black Lives Matter movements really started, and like George Floyd and all that. And it's just like, man, like I'm not strong enough. Like, I'm exhausted from these conversations, and I know that I'm gonna have to have these conversations again. And I was like, I don't think I can do it. And I know that God kept telling me, it's like, all right, trust in me. I'm gonna guide you through it. I'll give you the rest that you need. And even then, like, I still face frustrations, like, just because there's such a different culture, right? Like, there are just certain things that you don't do in our culture that's like you don't think about in yours. And there's a lot of things like that I was taught kind of to protect myself.
Wow.
Like, if I'm gonna go to 2 stores, make sure, and I'm carrying the bag, like, I'm not going to my car, make sure you got a receipt, because I already know something, right? Because you know that someone's gonna stop you and think that you stole it, or it's like I have to wear a smile on my face, kind of like a blessing of these masks is like nobody's smiling, so it's cool. But like I had to wear a smile on my face just to de-escalate people, because like I'm a 6'7", like 250 black man. Like,
You big.
like I'm a not like people notice me. Like I have an intimidating presence. So even just like, hey, I'm like, I don't want to, like, I don't care about you, like, in that way. Like, I'm not gonna hurt you. I don't want your stuff. And just stuff like that. And like we say yes sir and yes ma'am and no ma'am and no sir, just because that's a way to calm people down. Not out of respect. Like, it is respectful, but we did it to de-escalate to like like if a police pulls you over, yes sir, no sir, like, just because they feel like they have more authority, and we're giving them that like authority, and like we're really just calming them down. So I think that was one of the difficult parts of this summer, is like, how often do I have to be the person where it's like I put my emotions to the side and I have to like cater to theirs.
Wow.
And like my pastor, we had a conversation about this a couple weeks ago, and I remember telling you and Chelsea about it. It was like, it's not encouraging, but it is encouraging in the sense of like, you're just like Jesus, in the sense where like you have to cater to people's needs, and like you don't have that rest, and that like my blackness is God's gift to me to really relate to Jesus in a way that you wouldn't be able to, because like you don't have that opportunity, or you don't have like, you don't have to do it. Where it's like, okay, I had numerous conversations. Oh, like, I'm not racist. Like, you're my friend. And like the white guilt comes, and then they just start putting on the defense mechanism. I'm like, look, I'm not, I'm just telling you how I feel. Like, I'm not attacking you. Like, I'm scared. I want to have kids, but I'm afraid to bring them in this world. Like, I want to walk in love and light, but it's so hard to do that when people just don't want me in this room. And there's like, we had a president at the time who like was endorsed by people who hated me, and they don't even know me. So like, it's terrifying, but I can't express this sadness because I'm supposed to be this person who's like super strong and like always carrying my grief, and like, oh, you're sad, let me help pick you up. Like, and cool, like I get that, like that's what we're called to do. But like at some point I want to take this armor off and just like, man, like and breathe. But it's navigating that and like understanding like, okay, like my pastor's right, like it's not fair, and like I'm not expecting it to be fair, and God's not fair, but God's just. And like understanding that God is just, and through that, and like he called me up here to be a voice for people who are struggling like I am, not necessarily for all black people, because I don't speak for all black people. Like, I speak for me and people who think like me and feel like me. And then I speak for those who like, what do I do? Like, what are the next steps?
That's good.
And learning now that like that's why God's called me to all these different
Yeah.
spots, from like the Inland Empire to Portland, back to the Inland Empire to Germany, back to LA, back and then like up back to Portland. It's like, man, I'm just like think like it feels like God's playing ping pong with my life. Like, here, all right, you're back, and we're here, like, and it's just through that whirlwind. It's like, okay, like this is my calling, and no matter where I'm gonna go, like I just need to like say like, God, I'm here. I trust you. Take me where you want. Like, you here are the keys to my car. I'm just gonna sit back in the passenger seat and let you drive.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Wow.
But we're still
Wow. I
working.
think so many things just stuck out to me. One, I just feel like God just gifted you with the spirit of dependence. Like the way in which you depend on the Lord is something that I hope I could get to someday, because I think there's a lot of times where God would call me to do something, but I'm just like, I'm not doing that. You're like, okay, sure. And I think something that I know me and you talked about before this that I really wanted to like step into was like that call. Like when I listen to your story, there's so many times in which God's called you to a place you don't belong, or a place that you stand out. And I just kept hearing the word wilderness. Like God always took his best leaders to the wilderness to love on them, build them up, support them, but then send them out into, and I think Germany was your wilderness to come back here. I will ask, you were an intern with FCA. Has the culture changed within FCA since you've been an intern to now coming on staff? Do you feel a shift in the right direction, or how's that been? Leaving and then having to come on back.
I think that's hard because there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Yeah.
I think the culture as a nation has shifted since March of 2020, essentially. So I can't be like, yeah, of course, but like, I do feel like there's higher levels of like, okay, like I'm a mess up. I may not say the right thing, but like, let me ask for grace and let's work on how I can correct it. I think that definitely has improved. I know that we were like starting at when we first got here, like, because we started with the emotional intelligence, and that was like a way for us to like learn how to speak to each other. And but yeah, it's definitely improved in like the sense of like I'm human, I have folly, I will make mistakes, but I'm not trying to do it in a way that's like harmful. Yeah. But in a way that's like teach me to love on you better.
Yeah. I think one of the problems that I have a lot of times is I see in scripture that God tells us to help carry each other's burdens. And so many times I've been down to my friend and I'm like, all right, now let's go. Like, stop being like that. I'm trying to help you. And I think a lot of times God's like, you can't even carry this burden because you don't even understand what it's like to carry that burden. So I would ask you, like, just as a brother in Christ, like, how can I help you or learn better to help lift that burden, to help walk with you in that?
That's
heavy.
Great. It's heavy, but it's funny because
loaded question.
It's a super loaded question. Hold on.
Let's I'm gonna hear this myself.
It's really funny because that's a question you get a lot, especially this summer. Is like, how can I help you be better?
Yeah.
And I'm like, originally I was like, shoot, I don't know. But then it's just the words started coming like you said, like, I don't need your help to lift my burdens. Like, I don't need someone to hold my armor. I don't need someone like I don't want to take it off. I'm like, here, like no. I just want someone to be like, hey, like this is a safe space. Like you can take it off and I'm not gonna attack you, right? Like you can take off that golden armor and just set it to the side, and we're just gonna be together and like in this moment. And a lot of that is just what we're doing right now. We're just sitting, talking, laughing, telling jokes, and just hearing each other's stories. And yeah, it's hard because it's like you want help, but not from man. You want help from God. But then it's also like, is God bringing this man to help you? And so it's kind of like a catch-22. Like, how do I navigate it? And I think that just sticking to that is like, I appreciate your help from burden, but like you said, like you can't live this burden.
I'm like Chris, like stand up.
Like you good? I'm over here like I can't. Like
yeah.
But that it's more of just like, cool. You see me laying on the ground, all right, I'm gonna lay with you.
Yeah.
And then like invite God to come, and then Jesus will lift us up together.
Yeah.
And that's
I think of Psalm 23 where he says, "Let's sit at a table in the midst of our enemies." And it's like when I sit at a table with people, we're hanging out, we're eating, we're having a good time. But that's just with everything circling around us. And I think so many times I'm ready to get up from the table and be like, all right, let's do something else. But I think what you said is like, let's sit at the table and allow God to help us move forward. That's so good, Chris. Thank you for sharing. I just want to honor you. Like you said in your story, it's exhausting to always keep saying this. So I want to honor you and say thank you for sharing. But just pass it on over to my man D. Kind of share a little bit.